Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet again another edition of the S Stories right here on Sophia Anjam's official YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching. So last time around, we were talking about anxiety, depression, suicidal tendencies. Of course, we had an expert over and we were talking about how we can very well, sort of manage things that happens in our daily lives as well. And the most important thing is that take a listen to this very carefully. Don't believe everything you think. Welcome to yet again another edition, and let's warmly welcome our guest yet again. Assalamu alaikum, Omar Tausif. Welcome back. How are you?
Thank you. I'm all right. Thank you.
All right. It was a fantastic experience with last time around also. We talked a little bit about depression. We talked about anxiety. We had a lot of trigger points also. We talked about what to do, what not to do. And once again, unki formal introduction de dete hain because we have to do what we have to do also. He's a Fulbright scholar and a psychotherapist by profession. And he's trained in some of the best institutes for counseling and psychotherapy in the world. So once again, we welcome you to the show, Omar.
Thank you.
Now today, we're going to talk about something which is slightly a little different from the first topic. Now we talked a little bit about certain mental health ailments also. Now let's talk a little bit about the kind of mental health disorders that are prevalent in the society today in Pakistan.
Okay. Before I do that, I'll just give some statistics which we have globally. Unfortunately, Pakistan ke liye we don't have too many reliable statistics available.
Sadly.
Even the ones that I have looked up, some of them are very widely outdated from 10 years ago, 12 years ago, where a lot has changed in our society since then. But globally, it seems like there's huge numbers of people, something like 450 million people worldwide who seem to be suffering from mental health issues, and it seems like at the present moment it's the fourth leading cause of disease, disability and death in the world, and it's touted to become the second largest cause of disease, disability in the world in the next couple of years to come. So the gravity of the situation is pretty severe,
of course.
Whereas the resources dedicated to it, whether that was internationally or even locally, it seems like the sort of attention that medical illnesses have gotten, psychological illnesses have not gotten the same attention. Even in terms of professionals taking it up as a profession, medical professionals taking up psychiatry as a specialization.
Yes.
Pakistan, for example, the statistics till a few years seem to be that there were under 1,000 psychiatrists in the whole country of Pakistan.
Wow, that is insane, Umar.
Seemed to be something like a number of 2 to 3 every 100,000 for every 10,000 people.
That's very low. That's
Whereas
very
it seems
low.
like the child psychiatrists are even fewer, where there's 2 to 3 child psychiatrists for every humongous number, something like 4 million people.
So I remember we were talking about not having the right kind of check and balance here in our society when it comes to people who are authentic and genuine or not. But I mean, even this it's quite crazy, isn't it? And nobody is bothered about this.
So I mean, if we consider all across the board, jitne bhi psychiatric, psychological, social work professionals, nursing staff who are dedicated to mental health services, it seems like there's only 80 such people available for every 100,000 individuals.
Right.
So you may consider that that's a so even if there were 80 such patients, we'd only have one professional available for every one of them. But for every 100,000 people, we just have 80 available. The numbers are very skewed. There are very few resources that we have in this country, and it seems like the prevalence of this is increasing, and we don't have numbers.
So what about the government support, and why do you think this is happening?
So from the last I knew, I would personally know there are government funded, there are 5 or 6 psychiatric hospitals for the whole country.
Okay.
For the entire country.
All right.
And there are something like a few thousand mental health clinics, outdoor clinics privately that may be functioning for a population of more than 200 million.
Of course.
So the resources that we have in the mental health field are severely deficient, and even the resources that we have, one of the biggest problems that we have in this country right now in the mental health field is that we have no accreditation standards. Uska matlab ye hai that anyone today with any qualification can just get up and start practicing open shop. Unhe rokne wala koi bhi nahi hai. Koi bhi kuch bhi karo mental health ke naam pe, including, for example, any form of internationally considered unethical treatments or internationally considered outdated treatments. There is no place that a patient or a practitioner or I or you or anyone can go and complain that मुझे मेरे psychologist ने ये advice दी है, which has backfired and it's destroyed my life. Where do I go? And I am very accustomed to meeting such people who would tell me this.
And also, Umar, I mean, today's day and age, you know, it's all about PR and marketing, right? So you go on the social media and you talk about the fact that how fancy your shop is and how fancy your work is, and that's it. Boom, you know, you have a lot of your clients also. So how do you check it and how do you authenticate those people?
So
checkpoints.
I would suggest to consumers of the service that just like before you go to a doctor, you're generally seeking out their credentials. If someone is unwilling to share their credentials, or just like most doctors in their clinics, they display their professional credentials,
yes,
their diplomas, their degrees. If your mental health professional isn't displaying them, I think it's very well within your right to ask them for what their qualification is. And another issue is that a lot of times people are practicing outside the scope of their competency. So for example, if someone doesn't have a certain qualification to work with addictions, or if they don't have a qualification to work with children, or if they don't have a qualification to work with special needs, or if they don't have a qualification to work with eating disorders, sleeping disorders, or any other range of disorders, and they are working out of their competency, I think it's very well within your right as a consumer to ask them that,
absolutely,
do you have a certain speciality in this? Have you trained in this? Do you have any experience? Because it's unfair for a consumer to be my guinea pig.
Of course.
अगर आज तक अगर मैंने किसी category of individuals के साथ ना train किया है, ना मुझे अंदाजा है उनके साथ कैसे काम करना है, but they're going to be my training grounds. I think that's not fair.
Of course, and I think we should be able to do our own research also. Now, coming back to the theme of the show also, now today we're going to talk a little bit about mental health disorders, the kind of orders that are prevalent in the society today in Pakistan. Let's talk about them in detail one by one.
I can both speak globally as well as from my own experience. So globally, some of the most prevalent disorders would be things like clinical depression, anxiety, and then we may have lots of other categories, different anxiety disorders, post-traumatic stress disorders, eating disorders, sleeping disorders, gender and sexual identity disorders, substance use disorders, impulse control disorder. Depression may be prevalent for up to, for example, in the US population, 1 in 4 people over the course of their lifetime, they may experience depression. In any year, for example, in the US, the number may be as high as 6 to 8% of the general population may be clinically depressed. Pakistan we don't have any numbers for depression, but one number which I have read in some medical journals is that some estimates will suggest that as many as 30 to 60% of women and as many as 10 to 35-40% of men may be depressed in Pakistan, or just come lifetime prevalence. What's the likelihood that over the course of lifetime someone may have the incidence of a certain mental health disturbance? In Pakistan, it could be as high as 40%.
Right. So speaking of men and women also, in the percentage you just portrayed here also, what is the difference between the kind of different disorders that men and women face here in Pakistan?
That's actually a very good question. So for example, it seems like if we look at global statistics as well as my own experience, it may seem like that a lot of women are seeking help for depression. So we may have an impression that maybe depression occurs a lot more in women, and if you look at global statistics as well, it seems like women have higher rates of depression than men.
Right.
However, there may be a complication there statistically, which is that instead of depression occurring more in women than in men, there is a possibility that women seek help more than men.
Okay.
Whereas men, if you look at some other categories of disorders, such as a man who may have an impulse control disorder, for example, explosive anger, or someone who has a substance
addiction of sorts,
it seems like men may be more represented there.
Right.
So the difference may be that whereas a woman is willing to come and seek help for depression, a man eventually may be coming in for substance use disorders.
Right.
Because when a woman is feeling that she's depressed and she doesn't feel that she's okay, she may still check herself in to a clinic or speak to someone who may suggest that, well, it seems like you have depression, you should speak to someone. a man may be more likely to turn towards substances, or a man may be more likely to bottle it up because the society's messages that emotions are for women.
Right, and be a man, and men don't cry and all of that, of course.
Why are you talking about weaknesses, vulnerability, the social messages, the cultural messages that vulnerabilities are not for men, men come from strength. So when I feel vulnerable, what I may end up doing is that I may just think that, well, I need to fight on longer, and I may turn to substances, or I may turn to sometimes even everyday things that people feel that, oh, this is a man's role. A person may even turn to work a lot more because this is how they cope.
Of course, because it's been defined by the society. This is what men need to do. This is what women need to do. They have to vent out their frustrations somewhere. Right. Okay.
So between men and women, it seems like some disorders such as eating disorders may be more represented in women rather than men, because that may have to do with social attitudes.
Sure.
The society may be a lot more vigilant of women and their body image and how they should be and how they should look as compared to men.
Sure.
Men are still allowed to be a certain way because
and they can get away with it. Yes.
Because their social value and worth is in the money they produce, or how responsible they are, or their caregiving that they their ability to provide for the family. Whereas for the women,
how they look,
be judged for how they cook, how they look, how they are as mothers. So obviously, both men and women may develop very different symptomology. For example, a man may be a lot more likely to be depressed if they've lost a job. But a woman may, for example, if she's not fulfilling her household responsibilities, or if she's unable to wake up on time, or if she's unable to send her kids to school, or if she's or if the message being given by the family is you're not a good enough mother, they may seek help for that. Or for example, a man may turn up to a clinic to say that, well, I need help for my not being able to hold employment, or well, my explosive anger, or my
I invested in a business, lost all my money.
Yeah, so something like that, rather than saying, well, I'm not feeling okay.
Right.
So there may be differences between men and women, not only in this, but also the expression of their symptoms. Whereas a woman may be more likely to turn inwards and maybe cry, or feel okay that she can cry. A man may feel the social messages that men don't cry.
Right.
So a man may be more likely to bang their car, or pick up a fight on the street, or beat someone up, or just maybe even sometimes turn that towards something else altogether. Like I said, towards substances, or working excessively, or just exercising excessively, or just doing something which they believe is helping them, which still asserts their masculinity, and they don't need to identify with weakness or vulnerability. Women may possibly show more signs of maybe helplessness, whereas men may show more signs of irritability. Women may show more signs of just not being in control or helplessness. Men may show more signs of violence or aggression. So there'd obviously be differences, but across the field we'd see some disorders where there's a difference between men and women, and there are lots of varying explanations that have been offered for it. Just like I said, that sometimes it's assumed that statistically speaking, why it seems like that women have more depression is because men are less likely to seek help, whereas women are more likely to seek help. Eating disorders seem to occur more in women rather than men, is because the society seems to be more fixated on women's body image than then. But then if you look at, for example, male models, it seems like eating disorders are represented a lot more than the rest of the general population, because they're meant to look good.
Actors and models altogether. Absolutely. Thank you so much for clarifying that as well. And I think it's a thought to ponder on as well for almost everybody who's watching this right now. So another question that I felt like asking you also is that I remember that a lot of my friends, I received a lot of calls from my friends in the middle of the night, and they've had panic attacks, and they've mentioned the fact that we can't breathe. And we feel as if you're having a heart attack, and we feel as if, this is it, they're not going to live anymore. There's something wrong. They can't pinpoint it, but they're having a panic attack. Why do they have panic attacks? How can we curb the situation?
Okay, that's a very good question. So anxiety is a very normal physiological, biological response to any emergent situation where we're feeling a certain threat. Now, the threat could be that there's a big interview. The threat could be that I've lost a job and I don't know what to do next. The threat could be that my relationship is not okay. The threat could be that someone has stared at me in a certain manner where that's been threatening. So anything in our external environment which I perceive to be threatening, and that could differ from you to me to another person. Now, when I have that perception of threat, a very normal physiological response to that is anxiety, where our heartbeat is elevated. We're just responding to a danger, and our normal biological response to that is usually that we can either fight it, we can run away from it, or we can just freeze. So that fight, flight, freeze response is a very normal biological response that not only we have, but other mammals and reptiles also have the same, which is that when a mammal is threatened by another mammal, or a reptile is being threatened by a predator, or a human being is threatened by any situation, our own brain, which is from the 500 million years of reptilian history that we have, we respond in that manner, which is that should I be fighting it? Which is that should I have a response to it? Or should I be running away from it? Or should I just collapse because I have no hope or in the face of this threat?
Of course.
So anxiety isn't a problem. But the problem is where over time I have either felt so helpless in my life, or my life has been such that, or maybe there is some other biological implications or hormonal implications or other neurochemical or neurobiological implications, or there may even be genetic implications where my nervous system is constructed in a manner that it continues to just, in a very jerk-like manner, continues to respond to everything in my environment in a manner where I go into the fight, flight, freeze response. So my check has bounced. Oh my God, what will I do? My friend didn't respond. And in that moment, now the rest of the world may find that very dramatic. And what's the big deal about this? एक message ही तो नहीं आया, मतलब आ जाएगा, या अगर आपने job के लिए apply किया था, किसी scholarship के लिए apply किया था, अगर आपको call अभी नहीं आई, हो सकता है आ जाए. और I mean, this is if your husband, spouse, boyfriend is not speaking to you, well, that's not the end of the world. Maybe you'll find love again.
Of course.
But for someone who presently is anxious due to a host of issues. I'm talking about where they're at right now and where their nervous system is at right now. They're responding to any threat coming from their environment in a very in a very intense manner, where one of the ways that can happen is in terms of a panic attack, where in that moment my body is going into that complete shutdown mode where I'm responding as I cannot cope with it, and this is the end of life. And in that moment, all of the physiological sensations and all of the symptoms a person is feeling elevated, heartbeat, shortness of breath, I feel a constriction in my chest,
you feel like you're getting a stroke or something.
I'm feeling like I'm getting a stroke. Now, the first thing I would really educate consumers of the show is that if something like that is happening, maybe the first time something like that has happened, maybe it's a good idea to check yourself in a hospital and get a clean bill of health from a doctor first, which is that they are the competent authority to actually tell you that you don't have a physical problem. So the first thing that we're ruling out is कि कोई physical problem तो नहीं है, because there is at least a possibility कि कोई physical problem हो सकती है.
But what if it's it's constant and it's consistent, and
so
somebody
once
who's
we've
been
ruled
suffering
out that there's a physical problem, then
Right.
even the doctor would be telling you that, well, it seems like it's stress induced, or it's related to something psychological. So at that point where it comes to the domain of counseling and therapy, which is that how can we change a person's way of thinking about those life events or thinking about those circumstances where they don't continue to go into that response.
Sure, and if you're with them, what do you do? How do you manage this situation?
One of the things that we're doing in that moment is we're staying with the person, we are helping them breathe in the manner. It may sound very paradoxical, but in that moment what a person actually believes is that they cannot breathe. But if anything, what is happening is that they're hyperventilating, they're breathing too much, and they're exhaling too little, which is that they're continuing to breathe at a very fast pace, and there's a buildup of carbon dioxide in their entire system, and they're not exhaling
properly.
So one of the things that they can do in that moment, again, this is first aid. I can't say if this will work for everyone, so please don't take my saying this as a prescription for everyone. If your symptoms are not reducing, please seek help from a mental health practitioner. However, what you can do immediately is, for example, you can try to cough. not from your throat, but actually here from your diaphragm. You can just try to cough. What that can do is that if there is a buildup of carbon dioxide in your system, some of that is released, and then take a deep breath where you allow the deep breath and a good surge of oxygen to go into your system. Hold that breath for a few moments before you fully exhale it, and then you hold that breath for a few moments till you fully inhale again, and then you hold that breath. A panic attack can pass in just a few moments.
Of course.
It's usually a lot easier when it's happening in my presence, because they are trusting that there's someone outside of us who can guide that process.
You know what? I remember, because when one of my friends had a panic attack, she called me in the middle of the night and she said that I'm coming over and I just want to see you, because once I see you, I have a feeling I'm probably going to be okay. So when she came over at the house, after about 5 minutes, she was okay, because she took me as a person who probably calmed her down.
So what we can do, what you as a friend can do, what
Right.
you as a parent can do, what you as a teacher can do, if you ever are with someone who seems to display these panic symptoms where they feel that, okay, I can't
Right.
breathe, I can't breathe, take me to a hospital, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. Now let's just assume that that's happening for the first time. It's a good idea to take them to the hospital. Maybe there is something you don't know about their medical history. Maybe they are asthmatic, maybe they have a cardiac undiagnosed issue. So the first time around, we want to take it medically seriously. But if it continues to happen, one of the things we can do is reassure them. I am here. Tell them I am here. I'm here with you. Is it okay if I hold your hand? Would you like me to hug you? Would you like me to hold you? You can check with them, maybe hold their hand and just ask them, okay, slow down, just slow down your breathing. If they're trying to talk, tell them don't talk. Ask them, do they want to lie down? If they want to, that's fine. If they don't want to, just maybe sit close enough to them or stand close enough to them where they can see you. If physical affection that comforts them, offer that to them. Don't give it unsolicited. That may even panic them further if you physically touch them when they're panicking. So if this is a friend, if this is a family member, if this is someone you know, you can just ask them that, do you want to be held? Do you want me to hold your hand? But more importantly, you can guide them to just slow down their breathing.
Sure.
One way that can even be done is maybe by breathing into a paper bag, or maybe just cupping your hands and just breathing like this. In that moment, they'd not be able to do it themselves. They would maybe initially, when someone starts having panic symptoms, they need someone outside of them to help them through it. But eventually, when they can do it themselves, and the more they have control over panic attacks, the lesser likely that it will continue. So panic attacks are a very controllable situation. But if they continue and there's nothing that's helping them, they even get worse over time, and it becomes even resistant to any form of intervention. So please don't let it go on. So if anyone has any panic attacks and you've tried everything that you've found off Google, do these things, do this, do that, and if it's continuing and if it's not stopping, maybe you need medication. Medication is not a bad thing where some people have that impression in their mind that, well, we don't want medication. I mean,
because we'll get addicted to it, and then
psychiatry is a complicated science. Reasonable psychiatrists have a fair idea about it. कि कौन सी दवाई किसको कितनी देनी चाहिए. They'll wean you off it. Reasonable psychiatrists, ethical psychiatrists have no reason to keep you on medication. They'll get you off if you don't need medication, and people get off medication. But if something, a lot of people think, oh, if we leave it for long enough, it will just go away. If it's not going away, some things may be actually transitionary. Let's say that a lot of times I'd work with people who may say that, well, we had panic attacks 10 years back when a parent died, or well, something happened 5 years ago and we had panic symptoms then, but well, it came and it went within 2 days, 4 days, 8 days, but now it's just not stopping for us, and that's what's making us seek help. So a lot of times these may even pass for people, but that may not always help.
You know what, this actually reminds me of a lot of myths in our society, also a lot of misconceptions that we really need to shun. Would you like to throw some light on that?
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't wish to again step on anyone's religious or cultural sensibilities. However, the first instance हमारी society में किसी को भी अगर mental health problems हुए, we assume that that's either a function of their lack of spiritual or religious connection.
Of course.
Or some very educated people still draw that connection that this is something that's something paranormal, that's something
and nazar bhi lag jaye.
So nazar lag gayi hai, jinn chamad gaye, ya very cross, well pagal ho gaya. So I mean that's that's psychology from even 200 years ago. That our first instance was that, I mean, that when someone has any of these things, that's demonology.
Right.
It's happened in the Christian tradition. It's happened in the Judaism tradition. It's happened
We've
in a
all
lot of
passed
religious
through, yes.
traditions. Hamari Islamic spirituality may be a tradition जो है, it's been there for a very long time. But again, वही बात है, वही सवाल मैंने जो पिछली session में भी बात की थी, which is that people will generally not assume this if someone has diabetes or cholesterol or a heart condition. But when it comes to mental health issues, somehow we assume that this is within our own control. We cause it, enhance, or this is some external factor whatsoever. Negative energies, nazar, jinn, something.
Of course.
Due to which these
Sadka
have
देंगे तो
happened.
सब सही हो जाएगा.
Yeah, so I mean, if it were that simple, then there'd not be the need of this entire field and all the
It
research.
wouldn't be a science.
A lot of very good professionals who've been dedicating their life to understand this and treat people with this. If it were that simple,
Of course.
I mean, maybe again, I will not disregard the possibility. Sometimes people may have pseudo symptoms. Pseudo symptoms se mera matlab hai that these are not clinically significant symptoms.
Right.
These are symptoms which exist, which just need a certain expression, or they need a certain, people just need attention of someone. And a lot of times when someone gives them attention and just tells them, okay, oh, well, here is something that explains it, these symptoms just disappear and they never come again.
Right.
And sometimes people feel, and a lot of people will vouch for it, that well, हमें जो है ये पानी पिया गया था, दिया गया था पीने के लिए, या हमें ये दुआ की बताई गई थी कि अगर पढ़ो ठीक हो जाएगा, and they may even start feeling a certain relief, and I would respect people's sensibilities.
And you know, sometimes also I feel that it's psychological. If I feel that, you know, I've taken a medicine that suits me, and I know that I'm going to be okay, then I just feel okay all of a sudden, you know, because it's in my mind. So I mean, time is running short. I'm so sorry.
So one such myth is that, well, this is magic, or this is any of those things. Another myth is it's a phase, it will pass. Another myth is it's for vulnerable and weak people.
True.
Another myth is
Iman
that this is a result of other things, but most of the people I work with are very well-adjusted individuals with jobs, with everything. We know enough people around us who have everything. It's not a function of gratitude. It's not a function of a lack of motivation. It's not. But if it's an independent thing where a person in their good faith is coming and saying, well, I have a problem.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Umar, once again. It was a pleasure to have you over for 2 episodes, and we'd love to have you over again, of course, keeping in mind the kind of questions people have. Maybe we'll bug you again and bother you again as well. Now, before we sign out, a take-home message for everybody who's watching this right now, especially when it comes to the portrayal of mental health patients in our media side as well. Yes.
That's a very good question. I think that media has also done a disservice where media has usually projected people with mental health issues as being violent, or maybe the very extreme mental health conditions. So for example, again, jab bhi koi mujhe mile and they're like, oh, what do you do? And I say, this is what I do. They may have some media impressions. Oh, you must work with people with multiple personality disorder, or people who may be violent, and people who may have schizophrenia. These are just a few categories of mental health disorders, and which are also very rare.
Right.
So someone who has psychotic symptoms, or someone who may have some very extreme disorders which show up, the media has usually portrayed these, but the real world, more prevalent disorders are in people who are just amongst us, who are otherwise very well functioning individuals, who have everything, who look very like regular normal people, and media doesn't seem to have captured a lot of such stories of women, of men, of workers, of mothers, of children, and that's something I hope that there'll be more of.
Absolutely, we'll definitely be pushing this forward as well. Thank you so much once again, Umar. As for the rest of you, thank you so much for watching. As always, signing out with a quotation. It goes something like this: that it's okay to be upset, to be angry, to feel stuck, to feel confused, to feel lonely, to feel hurt. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to cry. Above all, be kind to yourself and refuse to let negative feelings trigger you into waging war on yourself. Take good care of yourself, and Pakistan Zindabad. Bye-bye.